And now we are ready to welcome our keynote speaker. We would like to welcome Torrey Snow. He is a Maryland columnist, scholar, and radio personality known for his razor-sharp analysis and engaging common-sense perspective on education, culture, and public policy. If you're not already following Free Range Politics, please go do that now. And thank you. Welcome, Torrey Snow.
Microphone is the perfect height. Good evening. Thank you all so much for welcoming me here. And I do like to roam. I get a little excited, so please forgive me if the volume tends to go up and down. I do want to bring you greetings from my wife and my 4 children. They wanted to be here this evening, but we were unable to. We have a long road trip tomorrow, so I will try to stick around for a few minutes afterwards, but I will need to be running back to Central Maryland. But just to give you a bit of information about myself, I am Torrey Snow, former host of the Torrey Snow program on WBAL. This was the afternoon drive program, and for 5 years I made Governor Moore's life miserable. They hated it. The Democrats in Maryland live in a state of persistent entitlement. They live in this arena where they face no real challenge, especially politically. We can acknowledge that there are challenges with the Maryland Republican Party, and hopefully there's some opportunity to regroup there. Okay, no problem. I met my wife using projection. But no, we spent an incredible amount of time raising issues, and here's the reality. My program director would constantly get emails from the governor's office complaining about me. They actually had someone on staff writing down and transcribing my show, highlighting it, and sending it to the boss with the goal of getting me fired. And they would constantly say, like, well, he's talking about this or he's bringing this up, and my response every single time was, I am simply telling Maryland what they are telling these politicians. I'm simply telling them what's going on. There's nothing wrong with that. If you follow my platform, formerly Snow in the Know, it's now Free Range Politics, 90% of my content, you guys know this, isn't it just me pulling up the governor, playing what he said, and saying, isn't that dumb? It's just him. The audacity of these politicians, the audacity of these members of the Board of Education, the audacity of these unions to do and push the issues that they say, and the expectation that nobody is going to push back on them is something that must be confronted at every level. I have made it my personal mission to save this state of Maryland. And it's hard, but that's my mission, to save the state. How I do that is going to vary. Many people put a lot of pressure on me to run for governor. They wanted me to be at the top of the ticket and, get someone and to push things. Could I have done it? Theoretically, yes. But I do believe that there is a much greater need than politics. Education is a team sport. I say this all the time. Education is a team sport. And the sooner, you guys already understand this, but the sooner that the broader movement understands that fighting against weaponized entities like the teachers' unions lobby, the political activists that are currently sitting in Senate and House seats in Annapolis, the executives that are running our counties and our states. I'm in Anne Arundel County, and the current chair of the Maryland Democrat Party is also the county executive of Anne Arundel County, and you can only imagine where that's going. They run as a team. They have communicators. They've got activist groups. They've got their political ground games. And for the longest time, Maryland seemed to be behind the ball on that. We don't have our communicators. We don't have the people that can contend in these public arenas. We honestly didn't have enough grassroots civic organizations like this. That's why when Tom reached out to me and says, hey, we've got this group up in Frederick and we're working to deal with things related to education, I said, I'm there. If I can get it in my schedule, I'm there, because groups like this, you are part of the team. You're an important part of the team when we confront these issues. Let me lay out what Maryland needs as it relates to a course correction. Philosophically, what I understand about our education system and why we have a problem. And it comes down to one fundamental misunderstanding. There is a misalignment of what we want out of education. The teachers union, the Democratic Party, the politicians in Annapolis, they have a goal for education. It is not your goal. Because your goal, most of your constituents' goals, you want your child to go to school, you want them to learn how to do mathematics, you want them to learn how to read, you want them to have a basic understanding of what their nation is, how their government functions, how our society works, a basic understanding of history, so that when they graduate from high school, they will be on a course to pursue whatever productive lifestyle will suit this nation. I have to add that productive in there, because that is where the goals diverge. It is. This is a fundamental philosophical difference. And I'm not here, my friend Giovanni, we can go back and forth on the deep philosophy and the Frankfurt School of Philosophy, socialism, Marxism, and unfortunately all of those are part of this, but remember this, and if you don't want to take anything else away from this, remember this. For the radical progressives, I don't say Democrats because the Democrat Party has been hijacked in many ways, and I know that we can get into that later, but for them, the activists, their objective is not to create productive citizens for this country, it is to create useful voters. That's their goal. They are actively grooming and preparing young people to be able to support whatever social ideas that they have. If you go back 2 videos, if you go to Free Range Politics on YouTube, my co-host Jeripsy and I, we were reacting to an individual on the street of New York. Some of you might have seen this video. Have you seen the video about the economy? And they asked this guy on the street, they said, hey, if a business is leaving the state because of the taxes, because here in Maryland, we are hemorrhaging businesses. You can ask Brenda Cham about that. It is hemorrhaging businesses. We have all these high taxes. Wealth is portable. The former Democrat candidate for president, Andrew Yang, told what we all know, wealth is portable. If someone has wealth and it gets taxed and regulated, that person is going to take that wealth and move it. They asked this individual on the street, well, what should we do in that situation? Oh, well, we should take their business from them. And the city should run it. And if they try to get away, then we tax them for leaving the state. And you might say, oh, that's just some random guy on the street. This is a public school teacher. An actual teacher, and that's not an anomaly. Your classrooms here in the state of Maryland, probably in Frederick, they are filled with individuals whose objective is to indoctrinate and to prepare young people to be amenable to whatever issues. That's why there's a misalignment of objectives here. Your goal, your agenda at this point should be to send a resounding message. This is what we want from education. We want our children to be educated and prepared to contribute. And like you in this room, and the people that have contributed to this organization, to the people that are running and sitting on our boards of education, running for county executive, running for Congress, whatever it is, your objective is to be responsive to the Maryland residents that are saying, I just want my kids to learn. Let me take you down another more fundamental misunderstanding when it comes to education. You and I understand that effective education involves understanding the children that are under your care, identifying the standard that they need to meet, and then using whatever tools, methods, and resources are available to help them get to that goal. That's what education is. You want to help a child reach a specific level. And in order to do that, if you have been personally involved in education, if you have raised children, if you're an educator, your understanding of that will say, well, that involves communicating clear expectations. It involves accountability. It involves rewards and reinforcing positive behavior. It involves a direct relationship with that child, which means you need to understand that child. This is where things get off course. A teacher, an educator, gets a limited amount of time in a day among other children to understand that child. Who understands a child better than that child's parents? No one. Or guardian. I get, right? Because what's going to happen, by the way, I'll say something like this, and the unions will be like, well, what about? No, I'm not talking about what about. The vast majority, you love your children. You want your child to succeed. You know their habits. You know when and why they might get cranky. You know what they respond to. You know what motivates them. Education's a team sport. If you have an education system that is objectively planning to cut parents out of the process, that system will fail, period. It will. It cannot be successful. In the fantasy world where I'm running for governor, and this is why I'm not running for governor, because one of the things that I would say, and my PR people would hate me for this, but I would say, this is how I would present my message. I would say, look, we have a great education system. We have all these resources that are available to us. We're going to do the best that we can. If you're not engaged in your child's education, your child's probably going to fail. I'm sorry. If you're not engaged, it doesn't matter how much money you give me. It doesn't matter how many counselors that you hire. If you are not engaged in your child's education, if you're not going to check on their homework, if you're not going to make sure that they're clean and ready for school, if you're not going to do the things that a basic human being needs to survive, that child will not succeed. Well, you can't say that. How are you going to win an election on that? Look, the Democrats, they have built their platforms on the complete fable, the lie that if you spend enough money, we can overcome your failure to parent your children, and it is impossible. I really believe that. You'll find a few bright spots. You'll find a couple of isolated scenarios, but I mean, look through pop culture. I want you to look at people that you know right now that have overcome the odds, that have done things that are impossible. Name one story in which someone says, thanks to the funding that my school system had, I was able to overcome. Seriously, name it. I mean, think about the fact, there's this amazing guy, I don't know if you guys have heard of this guy, but I mean, this amazing guy. Military background, raised on the rough streets of Baltimore, got into some trouble with the cops, was on a course for disaster. And at some point, it was clear that this young man was just not going to do well. And that young man's mom said, you know what? This can't continue. And so this young man's mom went to family members and says, I got to do something about my son. I got to get him out of this environment. And this mom worked, broke her back, reached out to family members and raised money to send this young man to a military academy to get an education. He'd go on to become an officer and eventually become the governor of the state of Maryland. I'm talking about Westmore. I'm serious. People ask me, why are you so mad at the governor? I'm furious with the governor because he is denying children across the entire state of Maryland. He is denying them the same opportunities that he had. There's no excuse for him to not opt Maryland in to the federal program to help support school choice in the state of Maryland. There is no reason for it. It's inexcusable what he has done. He's the worst kind because he got it for himself. His family made sacrifices for him to send him to a private school, and yet he has the audacity to say, well, I don't think other people should have this opportunity. This is malicious. I believe it. I don't say that about every politician. I really don't. What we're seeing in Annapolis is malicious. If you haven't read it yet, Failure Factory by Chris Pabst. It's impossible to read what has been taking place in the Baltimore City schools and interpret it as anything other than malice. These are smart people, they're educated, they have to know that a city with the highest per pupil spending, is it still the highest in the country, 28,000 per pupil? It's up there, it's up there. We're spending, what could you do with $28,000 a year in tuition? What kind of school could you send your child to? We're home educators. My wife does a great job with our 4 children. My son, I'm gonna brag for a moment just because he's my son, took the SAT last year, got like a 1480 or something, and he's like, nah, I'm not big on that. I'm gonna retake it again so I can get a 1500. Next week he's taking it with the goal of getting into the 1500s. My wife did that. Home education, long hours. I'm practically a single dad during the school years. Education is for the children. When you're dealing with lobbies and powerful special interests whose objective is to reinforce the bureaucracy, the children will lose every time. And we can't tolerate it. We have to push back on it. And that does mean that sometimes Torrey Snow has to put a nasty little op-ed in the Baltimore Sun. It does. It sometimes means that Torrey has to pull out his smartphone and says, hey, I'm sorry to come to you again with something bizarre that Annapolis has done. I think I heard that they're going out to private schools now. Good luck with that, because almost all of them have their kids in public schools. That legislation's dead on arrival. But look, I do feel that we as the citizens, we as the people in rooms like this, have to recognize we're the good guys. We're the ones that are telling the truth. We're the ones that are fighting for our children. We are fighting for a better future for them, and not just our children. Because a lot of these guys, they're going to come at you and be like, oh, well, you just want good opportunities for your kids. I'm confident that everyone in this room wants opportunities for every child that's in Baltimore City, regardless of their economic status. It's great for all of us. Look, I'm in my 40s, and if the Lord gives me time, I'd like to get into my 70s and 80s. Quite frankly, I want a society of well-educated young people that are going to create all sorts of breakthroughs that are going to make me very, very comfortable in my old age, right? That's what I'm hoping for that, right? That's what the future is involved. So yes, I am going to get irate when I see patterns of schools that are failing. I heard that even in Frederick, you guys are having challenges with like just getting kids to understand algebra, just to get basic reading scores. And what do we choose to focus on? Oh, well, we're going to make sure that they understand how many genders there are. We're going to make sure that they understand all of the different issues, the social issues, and that they can understand how to be social activists. Their priorities are completely misaligned. And look, just full transparency, socially, personally, like when it comes to political, I'm fairly libertarian. I'm not trying to get in your business. I'm really not. Right? Whatever you do, that's up to you. Now again, when you start reaching into my wallet and start asking to spend my money, yeah, I'm gonna ask where that money's going. And I want that money going to things that aren't appropriate. But by and large, right, we're the compassionate ones, we're trying to create an inclusive environment. You're doing that at the expense of what our children need to survive, and it has to stop. That's why there needs to be pressure at every level of government, but the pressure, the focus when it comes to education, it comes down to your local boards of education. All politics is local. I have been blessed, right? Look, I get to contend at the highest level of the state, and that didn't happen overnight. So Delegate Chan knew me. I worked up this ladder, right? There is a place for people to have those debates and to shape the broader issues, but at the reality, the real change comes from organizations like Better Maryland Schools. It really does. The real change comes from educating residents on these are the types of decisions that your boards of education are making. These are the issues that they are taking on. these are the priorities that they're focusing, and that's really at the core of it. What are the priorities? That'd always be my pushback. Oh, well, we want to implement this new curriculum. Okay, well, how are we doing with basic math? Can we get that straight and then talk about this other thing? Because quite frankly, if you look at the things that need to be done in our school system, you're going to have your hands full just getting the basics down. That's why I always counter. They come to me, well, why don't you want to support this? I'm like, we just don't have the time for it. Look, I'm sure that you're very interested in people understanding all the different nuances of how humans interact with each other. I would like my, people that are going to be rebuilding the bridge here, because it's not going to be till 2040 till the key bridge is rebuilt. I'd like them to be able to do algebra. I'd like them to be able to understand the basics of physics. Like, let's focus on those things. And then, once we've solved all these other problems, then we can get to that. They'll never go for that. You know why? And this is, I'll wrap it up here, but this is just my personal opinion. It's not necessarily a reflection on the podcast or my co-host, but I honestly believe that there is an intentional, malicious effort to subdue American education. I look at the data, I look at the facts, it's hard for me to accept that it's just accidental, or just a disagreement, or just, I just didn't know, or we just didn't fully understand. The data has been clear for decades. The things that we have been doing have not been working, and yet, year after year, you have the same thing. Nobody's having a serious discussion about the blueprint for Maryland's future. They're still all in on that, and it just needs to be scrapped and redone all over again.
We're gonna do that.
They still, yeah, I hope so, but they're still going for it. Right? They're still pushing for these things, and they're just like, how can that be accidental? So let me leave you with this. I got a little ramped up, a little off course here, but so let me just leave you with this. First of all, the fact that you're here tonight, you're supporting Better Maryland Schools, that you're aware and engaged on the discussion, continue doing what you're doing. I'm quite literally preaching to the choir with these things. But I would add that as you have an opportunity to elevate more people, elevate their voices, use your personal capital to do so. And that's hard. Right? It's easy, relatively easy. You can write a check and say, hey, I'm going to come to this fundraiser, or hey, I'm going to support this event at Better Maryland Schools. It's a little harder to go to your neighbors, 3 or 4 of your neighbors, or send a text message or make that phone call and says, hey, will you join me? What are they going to think about me? What if they're part of the unions? What if they fundamentally disagree? I think that in order for movements like this to take off, you have to be willing to take those risks. And this is what I have personally learned as someone who is way off script for a number of reasons politically. What I have learned is that when you have the courage to step out, you will find more people willing to step out behind you. It happens all the time. I know Giovanni gets this, Brenda gets this. We'll be in a room, and after the meeting, it'll be some conservative issues or something, we'll speak, and they'll come up and, normally a black person, someone that's a minority, someone that's supposed to be a Democrat, they'll come up and they'll be like, hey, I agree with everything you said. Am I wrong?
You are 100% correct.
But what has happened, okay, we've seen this evolve. Giovanni's been in the trenches with me. We've seen this evolve, right? We have seen tremendous, how many do you guys have on your Baltimore City conservative podcast right now? How many subscribers?
215,000.
215,000 subscribers. And this is not your, this is not your, these are people from the city. These are people that are like, hey, these things are happening in our communities. When you've got the courage to step out, put yourself out there a little bit, it does matter. And as self-serving as this sounds, it really is important to elevate the voices that are contending at these high levels, right? I'm not trying to be arrogant. The governor knows me by name, and their team does not know what to do with me. That is important. It has an impact. You guys, the Orioles opening day the other day? He got up there and people booed him. I really do believe that people like myself are giving folks the courage. It's okay to criticize. I mean, they've created all kinds of armor. If you don't like me, it's because I'm a black governor. And I called him out on that nonsense right away. It has nothing to do with it. Like, people literally told you not to do this. Like, when you step out, you give fuel to those voices, it really does make a difference. So again, self-serving, I'm going to encourage you to go to Free Range Politics, really specifically on YouTube. This is the hard one. Most of you probably follow me on Facebook or on Instagram and all these. The YouTube channel, this is part of a very, very big strategy that myself and Europe C. Morgan are running, and a lot of what we're planning, my ability to be able to do things like this and everything, a lot of that hinges on the success of this podcast, in which we will have honest, regular discussions about these issues, and ultimately, at the end of the day, talk about these issues in ways that the governor cannot ignore. Because again, I keep running into run-ons here, but I'm just telling you, a lot of times these Democrats do and say the things that they do because they just legitimately believe nobody's going to counter them. They just believe no one's going to have anything to say because they thought falsely that they created this idea, well, if you criticize me, I'm just going to call you a racist. Yeah, well, good luck with that. Things like that are important. So follow us on YouTube if you are able to do so. All right, this would be helpful. We have a Patreon there, people that can financially support the show on a monthly basis. All of these are things that just really help elevate what we're trying to do. We are in the trenches on this. Both Europe C and I are very much in favor of school choice. We are, I'm certain that you guys are going to be creating more pressure on the governor to get Maryland opted in to the school choice. That's a huge initiative that we're working on in DC and a few other things. But again, Free Range Politics, YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, any of those platforms, follow those platforms. Send it to your friend. If you have questions, you can message it. I get a lot of messages a day, so I can't. Oh, but if you make like a note, like, "Hey, I saw you at the, at the Building Better Maryland Schools event or something," then I'll keep an eye out for those things. Keep flagging me on things. Most of my focus is on Baltimore City, Anne Arundel County, Howard County. But if things are happening in Frederick, you guys have a big congressional race that I do feel is going to be more competitive than anyone's expecting right now. So as those things come on the radar, please make sure to put those things out there. I know that you guys have issues related to data centers. Free Range Politics is here to provide that necessary voice to the discussion. So again, I want to thank you all so much for your time. Thank you for your attentiveness and your energy, and good luck as you continue your initiatives. Thank you.